everyone to the webinar. I will just do an acknowledgement of country before we get started. So before we get into this, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I am currently sitting, the Whadjuk Noongar people. I'm here in Western Australia. However, I do believe that we have some attendees tuning in other parts of Australia. So I encourage you to acknowledge or just to be mindful of what land you are on this evening. So welcome everyone to the MHFA Mental Health in Mining webinar. I'm so looking forward to hearing from all of our speakers today, as well as opening up the floor to all of our attendees to ask some questions towards the end. I will introduce myself as well. I am Darielle Asch, so I'm the host of the webinar, but I also work as the Community Engagement and Relationships Officer for Mental Health Foundation Australia. It sounds like a whole lot, but I really am just in charge of maintaining relationships with industries and communities here in WA. We also have another very special guest with us this evening before we get into introducing our speakers, our beautiful Anne Donaldson. So she's one of the incredible Mental Health Foundation board directors. Anne will be giving you all some insight as to what this webinar will be covering. So I might hand over to you, Anne, and then we will introduce our speakers and get started.
Thanks, Darielle. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight, our panellists and people from all over Australia, and also to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting. To put this into some context, last year, the Mental Health Foundation Australia, during the month of October, which is Mental Health Month, runs a series of symposiums and other special events. And last year, one of the big events over here in Western Australia was a symposium for mental health in mining. And it was phenomenal. It was a really interesting seminar and there was a lot that came out of it. And what came from that, and I think what is really important for us to reflect on, is there are so many positive things happening within the mining industry to support the mental health of miners, particularly when they're away from home. And there's a lot of support from the leadership within the mining industry. So that, I guess, provided the seeds for what is happening tonight. What we wanted to do tonight was to run a webinar where we could showcase the wonderful things that are happening within the mining industry and to really support the leaders within the mining industry to be able to showcase what they're doing, and for them to feel a sense of pride about that. But we also recognise too that this is what's happening now, and we're in an evolving world and it's changing rapidly as a result of the pandemic, and that there will be new issues that start to arise for people with their mental health and mental well-being. And I know that the leaders that are here tonight are really keen to actually tune into what those issues might be and to enhance what they're currently doing. So I would like to really celebrate what we're doing tonight and celebrate these leaders who've come along to really support the mental health and well-being of our mining industry, of our miners within our mining industry. So without any further ado, I'll hand back to Darielle and we'll get started.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne. Hearing you speak about last year just gets me all sorts of passionate and excited about the conversations that we're going to have this evening. But in addition to that, all of the good things that are currently happening when it comes to mental health support in mining. And I'm so excited to hear from all of you about what it is that you're doing to support the industry. So I will introduce our speakers so they're not just heads there floating. We don't know who they are. So our first speaker, I'll introduce you guys one at a time. So we've got Dale Henderson. Dale, would you give us a wave? Dale is the COO of Pilbara Minerals. We only met with Dale maybe like a couple of months ago, but hearing what he has been doing for his staff, even just throughout like the COVID period as well, has been really, really interesting in regards to just providing appropriate support and mental health support for them. Second up, we've got Robbie Figg. Robbie, if you want to give everyone a wave. Robbie Figg is the General Manager of Happiness Co, but is also a very key, important part of Fifo Happiness. So they're an incredible organisation that are providing resources and programs to the mining industry in WA, and I think maybe even beyond WA. Robbie, is that correct? Yeah. Okay. I'll get you to talk more on that soon. Third guest, we've got Peta Slocombe. So Peta is a psychologist, an author and a speaker, and has had a lot to do with the mining industry over the years, and has also been a part of some very exciting projects that aim to support the mental health of miners and the general public. So thank you so much for joining us, Peta. And then lastly, we've got David Bradbury, the company chaplain at Fortescue Metals Group. David was a fabulous part of our symposium that we ran last year, and we just had to get him back and involved in more things, just because of the incredible work that the chaplaincy program is doing at Fortescue Metals Group, and we would love to hear more about that in this webinar. Just as a reiteration of what Anne said, there are so many platforms that are discussing the things that are not working well in mental health in mining. So we really want to be highlighting the things that are working really well in order to empower other industry leaders to take note and get insight into what it is that they could be doing to support their staff, or what resources and support and services are out there. So thank you so much to all of you for joining us. I will also highlight that the way that we're going to structure this website, just to make it a little bit more interactive, is going to be a Q&A style. So initially, I will be asking each of our speakers some questions, and then we will move on to an opportunity for all of our attendees to ask any questions that they have, and our attendees can actually type those questions into the chat of our Zoom. So very much looking forward to this. I might get started in order that I introduced everyone. So Dale, you're up first. So I would love to ask you, what are you or your organisation currently doing that is working really well in supporting the mental health of miners?
Yeah, excellent. No, thanks, Darielle. And if I could just say, look, thanks for having me on behalf of Pilbara, and thanks to the Mental Health Foundation of Australia. Great to see this type of initiative, much needed, and good to see these conversations happening. Before I answer your question, just to set the frame for Pilbara, we're a young company. We've just started our third year of operation, Hard Rock Lithium. We employ about 500 people, and in our short sort of life of 2.5 years, we've had a hell of a journey. With lithium industry, it's been challenging. We had a downturn, which provided challenges for our staff in the form of some redundancy type measures, moderated production, and sadly, we even had a murder at our site, and then we had COVID. So as it relates to FIFO challenges for those workers on the mine site, we've experienced a lot in a short period of time. But pleased to say, as an organisation and as a team, we really have come through what I feel is very strong, and it's a credit to the team and everyone involved. And what I'm about to speak to is a representation of their work, and in particular, Charlie Burns and Linda Reddy, who are our champions within the organisation, who have been driven so much of what we've done so far. So having sort of set that as a bit of a backdrop, the key initiatives we've done, which have worked really well, really fall into two categories. There's been some direct initiatives, and there's been some more indirect initiatives. Now, the direct initiatives have really been in the form of EAP. It's a given. In our case, Charlie and the guys have made sure that group comes to site on a regular basis to make access easy, and we've found that that's been very helpful. Two, we've rolled out the mental health first aid training to all corners. Really positive, constructive initiative. I appreciate many organisations have done that. I encourage anyone who hasn't done that to do that. That's about enabling leaders to provide a net and touch points for those in need. So that's really critical. We've also had the odd speaker. We had Soa Palele, the MMA fighter. He came to site and did the rounds. So his story was really engaging, and we had a lot of positive feedback around that. Are you okay day? Those types of things. So all of the above, I'd put that in sort of the direct category of initiatives. In the indirect category, this has largely been about culture, and the things I would reference here are some of the more, I guess you'd say, standard things, but it's the way in which they're rolled out. So in our case, frontline leadership program, obviously coupled with the first aid mental health, that's about equipping leaders with good skills, conversational skills to support their teams. We've made mental health an active discussion topic. Obviously, during the COVID period, that was a ripe opportunity and very much necessary. Culture surveys, we do that biannually. That's an important touch point. And we've also done some camp surveys. And what that's about is really getting an atmosphere test of what sort of culture are we creating, and you do get some insights as to have we fostered forward an open culture where people are happy and want to speak up and getting what they need. So indirect initiatives and direct initiatives and all of the above, really useful. Yeah,
well,
so I might pause there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dale. I love what you're saying about culture. And David, I think, can attest to this. Last year when we had our symposium, that is a word that came up so much. And we spoke very much about culture shifts within mining being responsible for better mental health support. And if the people around you are not necessarily equipped to be opening up themselves or equipped to be speaking up if something's going on for them, it's very difficult for one individual to do so if it is not the norm, if it is not part of the culture. So I appreciate you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you very much for sharing that. I will hop along on to our next speaker. We're just going to do one question at a time for each of our speakers. So I've got Robbie. Again, the same question. So what are you with Fifo Happiness currently doing that's working really well in supporting the mental health of miners?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, thanks so much for the opportunity. Darielle, anytime I hear you speak, it wakes me up. You're like a human coffee, so thank you. For everyone else who's on board, Dale, Dave, Peta, Anne as well, and anyone else who's watching, how good is it that we're able to have these conversations so often and so easily now? So as you said from the outset, I'm the GM at Happiness Co., which is a social enterprise, essentially working in preemptive mental health. So trying to be even more preventative than preventative mental health, and trying to take the weight off the amber and the red of that mental health spectrum and working in the green. And we do that through lived experience integration with a whole bunch of evidence-based tools and tips and techniques that we know through our people that we've worked with in our individual space would translate really nicely into a team environment. And I love the fact that Dale mentioned a few things about, flattening out the hierarchy for well-being and happiness. We've been on that mission for 3 or 4 years now, making sure that no matter where you sit in that hierarchy, you are just as integral. And all of our research in that space, through our needs analyses or through the things that we do with our clients around, the country or around the world or wherever it is we're working with them, it's always the same. The same people have the same power, but if we can flatten that out, that's seeming to work really well. And you can do that through all those direct and indirect initiatives, which I think is fantastic. But more importantly, what we've been doing with Fifo Happiness, it was the same content we were always doing within Happiness Co., but in a different context. And it's going to be so important for us to keep that driving forward in the way that we are, because we're finding so many great results purely from being a third party. And I'm sure anyone who's worked in this space before, the more voices you can get, it doesn't matter how many, you're at least going to hit the percentage that learn that way or listen that way or absorb that information in that way. And even on this call, we've got so many different ways to approach mental health and well-being. I think that's really indicative of what works. And, I suppose from a tactical point of view, so strategically just working on the preemptive, but tactically, our own Fifo Mental Health and Happiness Summit, which was, started by Lockie Samuel, who was actually meant to be here. I'm actually a ring-in. So I hope no one came on here ready to listen to Lockie and got disappointed. I'm sorry. But he's actually out on site right now for one of our clients. And I suppose that shows the agility of our work. But those sorts of initiatives that are third-party driven, we always have this saying around breaking the white noise, because there's so much noise around mental health and happiness and well-being. If it's coming all internally, as I'm sure someone like Dale could attest to, or Dave, if it's all internal, it's going to be really hard to break down that barrier of yeah, okay, we get it. You've said this before. It's actually a completely different message. But if we can help reiterate those things and be external, that's been our most powerful tool to helping people.
I love that. Thank you so much, Robbie. And you are a perfect replacement for Lockie. Thank you very much.
I'm not as buff, but I'll try.
Also, I love what you're saying about the external coming in and speaking to the same things from a different perspective or in a different way. And I actually work with teenagers myself, and I often have mums talk to me about how their teens are never listening to them, and any advice that they give them, they're like, no, I'm not listening to you, my mum. And I will put forward that same idea, maybe like in a slightly different way or a slightly different environment, and they'll latch onto it and they'll take that advice. So it does sometimes help, not that anyone's a teenager, but I'm just saying it does sometimes help to have that third party. I think that's fantastic. You guys are doing awesome work. So thank you so much for being here, Robbie.
Appreciate that.
All right. So Peta, you are next, Peta Slocombe. So Peta, I will ask you, you can give a little bit of like a summary of what it is that you're doing project-wise within this space, but what are you currently doing that's aiming to support mental health of minors?
Sure. And it's a good point. If I had a hat on, I'd probably have a couple of hats on top of each other, because I think obviously I'm at a recent kind of transitional point. So I do clinical and organisational psychology, a lot of consultancy on leadership and culture and those sorts of things, and previous to going into mining, and also a heart that's really quite clinical still at the end of the day. The 3 years up until maybe a month ago, I was executive capability and culture at Northern Star Resources. That obviously is a gold mining company, recently having merged with Sarah. You've got someone like Dale outlining some brilliant initiatives. Obviously, Robbie also really complementing those. And I don't want to kind of replicate, I think, the fact that, they're brilliant initiatives. And obviously Northern Star, that was a big part of the commitment there to mental health in mining. I think of replicating things like employee assistance program, mental health first aid. We train 1 in 5 employees there, 1 in 4 employees. A lot of proactive meditation, mindfulness, but I think a key part of the approach to improve mental health in mining is, I think a lot of people are doing awareness, and, we in Australia, I've done a lot overseas with mental health in organisations, and Australia absolutely kicks ass. I'm sure there's a more sophisticated way to say that, but I'll just say it kicks ass in terms of its awareness of mental health. So I think Australia's well placed and really ready to move beyond awareness and actually start to integrate that culturally. One of the things that I've been really passionate about, I think it was one of the reasons that Northern Star was fortunate to win the AMA mental health in mining and construction earlier in the year, is really moving to a very strong digital platform. What we know, there's a lot of things that we know about mental health in mining, obviously a male demographic, obviously the time away from home, the traditional model of kind of getting help seeking by waiting until you either take a phone call at some point with someone that, you know, you've been hooked up with, or waiting till you are on R&R and then waiting for an appointment, and you've got like maybe 5 really usable days, you know, off, and you're not going to spend a day kind of getting somewhere, feeling nervous, sitting in a waiting room, kind of going through it, only to find that it doesn't necessarily fit. So for me, the passion has been, and my background is really strongly around using technology. Now, when you say technology, obviously there's a counterintuitive piece around the human experience and relationships, and not kind of wanting to outsource that to some app. So I think we've had to work really hard to say, how do we give people a really unique user experience? But mental health in particular, and I think this is really a focus for me in mining now, with some of the mining clients I'm starting to work with, is I'm not looking for a job in mining, by the way. I'm fully doing some super cool stuff. But I think one of the passions that stayed with me about mining is that people deserve a lot better in terms of the accessibility. We need to bridge the gap between people saying, oh, okay, I get it, I sort of know that maybe there's a challenge here, and the help seeking kind of phone call. And obviously mental health first aid is part of that bridge. So for me, the focus has been on digital stuff. So again, people being able to search exactly the right task, whether it's sleeplessness, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's iPad, FaceTime, short-term, long-term, being able to check in and out of that professional support when they need it. I think the last thing I would say in terms of initiatives in you know, mining and the focus, you know, certainly for Northern Star, that I think was really helpful, and that I've now quit Northern Star just to do a lot more of in terms of a pro bono initiative, is that mental health is about the last medical service and the last organisational service that has stayed reasonably rigid in its approach to seeking. So if you want to see a physio, you go in and out as you need it, right? If you want to see if you want to engage a HR consultant in the business, you might use one, you might not use one, you might get them in on a project and then do some follow-up stuff. With mental health, there's this concept that you got to cross the line and be in treatment or out of treatment. And then the only other option is, you know, you obviously got on-site mentors and things like that. So yeah, I think the digital brief in terms of all that we can do there is a real focus, and it's also part of the next, you know, area of focus that you referred to.
Thank you so much, Peta. I keep forgetting to take myself off of mute before I speak. It's the worst thing. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I do think there is a lot of value in having accessible digital support or check-in or just support in addition to in-person things. So we value that. So thank you very much for sharing with us, and thank you for all of the wonderful work that you've done with Northern Star and outside of it. We will move along to David. So welcome, David. Can I ask what is FMG, or what are you doing with the chaplaincy program that is currently working really well in supporting the mental health of miners?
Yeah, well, chaplaincy program's part of our pastoral care package. So like Dale, we've got EAP, we've got mental health awareness and training. Part of that is tied into digital. I'm really interested in what you're saying about digitizing stuff, Peter, because we're finding the younger generation access that a lot easier.
Yep.
And Robbie, the lived experiences, there's nothing better. And getting outside voices is crucial. It is. And your energy as well, Darielle, is wonderful. So this is a great, as far as I'm concerned, we set up Fortescue Chaplaincy in 2012 as a proactive resource because we sort of realised that sadly, quite often a concern has become an issue before people reach out for help. And we looked at ways in which we could actually breach that and get in first. So thinking proactively, we thought, well, we actually need people on the ground who are actually dedicated to just be there for their mates around them. So our chaplains are on site 24/7. They work back to back. We have 15 across the business now. We originally had 4, and it's grown accordingly. We've been truly fortunate that it's been an initiative from the board. So we've had the backing from senior management all the way down, which has made our lives a lot easier. And I think to get anything like this sustainable, you've got to have that buy-in from everybody. And that is really crucial. It is. Because within the resources industry, people come and go and we change and everything else. But so you need that the senior people in the business to be behind it in order for it to be sustainable. So with the chaplaincy, it's pretty basic. We just base it on being available and building relationships. And we do that by being with the people, traveling on the same planes, eating in the same dry mess, wandering around the wet mess, wearing high vis, getting around each work area, and connecting with people where they're at instead of expecting them to come to us. And by building them relationships, we've actually found that breaks down some of the barriers, not all, but some. And what we're actually finding is a lot of people who come to talk to us or seek us out are actually mates or supervisors or leaders, wanting advice about their colleague or their workmate or something like that, which is really good, because it's still very hard for somebody to come up and start talking about their own concerns. But by having a culture, and this is where what you said really rang with me, Dale, is the culture's got to be there that we're actually looking out for each other. But then we've got to have systems in place or people in place where we can access to get out. And that's what we do as chaplains. So we're around, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee with people, go for a ride in a truck, get them to show us their job, talk about what they do. And during them conversations, it's amazing what happens. It really is. And then we have a whole suite of different professionals as well as our EAP who we refer on to, depending on what the particular need is. Sometimes a person just needs to articulate it and get it out, whether it's a personal relationship or whether it's a work situation, and they just need to feel heard. So we, as chaplains, we have 5 criteria we look at. First one is to create a safe environment and a safe space. So that's meeting the individual where they want. Not everybody wants to be seen talking to a chaplain. There could be something wrong with you if you talk to a chaplain. So we will meet somewhere discreetly or wherever they want. It can be on site or off site. And then the next bit is we value them as a unique individual. And one of the things I find really blows my mind away is each and every one of us have a unique story. Nobody is ever going to walk in our shoes again, and nobody ever has. We converge, we cross over, we touch each other every now and again, but everybody's story is unique. And I find it a great privilege when people share part of their story with me. And I know our other chaplains do. What I do find surprising and also very empowering for the individual is it's surprising how many times people haven't felt they have been heard. So it's really important that people in these situations, and our chaplains are trained in this, to just be able to listen and create that space where people can share whatever it is that's on their mind or whatever their heart or wherever they are today. The third thing we do is we support them and their loved ones, because we'll support people at home as well. And we have chaplains based in Perth to do that. And we will support people in whatever way is appropriate for them. And that's by invitation. We're not there to bulldoze in or anything else, but the invitation is there if they want to take it up. Same as with our EAP service, works the same way. The fourth thing, which I really enjoy, is celebrating. It's amazing how many people have lost connection with the things that give them joy in life, the simple things, not the new acquisition of a new toy or whatever it is, but the little simple things in life, like a beautiful sunset or sunrise. and just taking time to be in that and enjoy it. And in the Pilbara, where our mining operations are, we get some magnificent sunrises and sunsets, don't we, Dale? Dale will attest to that. He's in the same area as we are. But quite often people just walk past it and never connect with it. They don't spend that couple of minutes just reconnecting and allowing themselves to be fed by nature and the universe around them, which can be really powerful. It could be, reconnecting with family or with children, spending time just watching them sleep. As anybody who's got young children will tell you, it's great when they finally fall asleep at night. So go back and spend 5 minutes and just watch them sleeping. I'll guarantee it will feed you. It will feed you. But quite often we walk out of a bedroom and think, oh, thank God that's over. They're finally asleep. Yeah, well, when you've got over that, just go back in and just enjoy and bask in their, where they are at that moment and the love they have to share. So reconnecting with them, simple things in life. It could be sat by a fire and just stroking your cat or your dog. There's so many different ways. It doesn't have to be anything whiz bang or shiny. In fact, it needs to be the opposite. And the last thing we do in conjunction with different bodies within the business is we develop strategies to move forward and how we can better support our people. You hear little things cropping up, and when you start hearing about 2 or 3 things cropping up, then obviously there's a theme coming through here. So what kind of things can we put in place to actually address these as they're arising, rather than waiting until it becomes an issue? So that's it. That's what we do. We're just here to listen and have a cup of tea with you.
I love that. Oh, and I love that you put that so simply at the end, David, because it's so much more than having a cup of tea. But I absolutely love your mateship approach to being there for people. And I love hearing you talk about acknowledgement, because that's, that just rings so true in so many different industries and communities. A lot of people just want to be acknowledged. And a lot of people just want to be heard. And as much as it's so important for us to have, lived experience speakers speaking at other things and encouraging one another to speak, I think allowing the space for someone to just share and for you to actively listen and hold space for them is so incredibly important. So thank you so much for all of the work that you are doing. I love this chat already. This is great. We should just catch up all the time, guys. So what we will do now is move on to the next question. And I guess it kind of ties in to the previous question. So this will be a little bit of a shorter answer. But I do want to know what results you have seen from this support that you have been providing your staff or your community or the industry. So if you could summarize, I guess, results that you've seen in people, whether you've seen growth, whether you've seen them become very comfortable with opening up when they're needing to, whether you've seen, huge self-development or even just more efficiency as in their workspace. I would love to hear from each of you, what it is, what results you've observed, if you have observed any. So Dale, I might start with you in regards to all of your internal and external support, so the EAP and the other support as well. Have you noticed anything from what you've put in place that has definitely worked really well, and have you gotten any feedback on that, or have you observed any results?
Yes, observed results, and it's been it's been fantastic, really, and the way that's played out, it's really hard to measure, but there's definitely been a more normalization of discussions and a more there's more conversations which occur, and I think that's really important. And the other sort of measure we have is through some of the surveys and that our contractors have undertaken. We get some good feedback through that avenue as well, which suggests It might not come through the labeling of mental health, but it comes through more descriptions around, an open, constructive, supportive environment, great place to work, all of those sorts of things. So we get some very anecdotal feedback, which is supportive, but then we also get some hard numbers, and the hard numbers are in the form of improved retention and those types of things, and just general better engagement. And while I'm on this topic, I assume that for the audience who's plugged in are most likely believers in this anyway, so I'd hazard a guess, and that's why they've plugged into this. And for the non-believers, and picking up on what David said about needing senior management support and senior leadership support, for anyone who's plugged in, who's looking for a way to enroll and convince those senior leaders, the line of logic I'd like to offer you, and is really the one I use, and I'm in sort of an operations, hard money, tons role. So this is the way I think, and I know this is the way many senior leaders think. The mission for any business leader, in my mind, is to create a vibrant, energetic environment with their team. If that is happening, results will flow bountifully. So that's about energetic, vibrant environment. That can only happen if that's happening at the individual level. So mental health or any other type of investment around the well-being of the people, in my mind, is the best money which can be spent. Because if you get that right, and that person is firing on all fours and is enjoying their role and enjoying where they're at in life, and feel supported, they're going to be focused on delivering great results, and then that extends to the team, and that extension through the team ultimately plays through the results to the business. So anyways, I offer you that as a line of logic to be used if there's anyone out there who's trying to persuade someone. Mental health is just a key sort of, to me, it's foundational. It has to be done well and broad-based, multifaceted, and if that's there, you have a chance of creating a vibrant, energetic environment. Yeah, so I'll pause there.
Thank you so much, Dale. That was fantastic, and I love what you said about gearing it and making it appropriate for the corporate people within your company, and efficiency and a better work environment is they go hand in hand with better mental health. If someone is taking care of themselves, chances are they're going to do a lot better at their job. That's how it works. So thank you so much for adding that. Robbie, can I get you to chime in on any results that you have seen from any of the programs or services that you've put in place?
Yeah, well, without going into the real detail of individual clients, because it gets really quite bespoke, for lack of a better term. But just to segue from what Dale's saying, we're really finding that a lot of, whether it's C-suite or line management or whoever's making the decisions, the gatekeepers, if you will, are really starting to see that hard dollar or that soft dollar turn into a hard dollar. And I remember going to a mental health and wellbeing conference about 4 years ago. And interestingly enough, it was workplace mental health and wellbeing. It was over East. We sort of felt a little bit out of place. We were new. We were kind of, just dancing into that space, and everyone was just sort of watching us weirdly. And over there, it was, lived experience wasn't spoken about at that point in time very much. Peer support was kind of, burgeoning, and everything that people have mentioned on this call right now, whether it's David's initiatives, Dale's initiatives, anything that Peter's been doing, what we've been doing, are now starting to bubble to the surface. And it's really a situation where we need to push through and make sure that we continue on that path. So for anyone who is convincing someone or who has convinced someone, and there's that sort of next step of, well, when do we start to see preventative work? I think we just need to stick to that path and that strategy. That's kind of the yes results, but I think they're quite ongoing. From a program point of view, program impact point of view, we see a really incredible rate of satisfaction and referral. We're pretty transparent in the fact that we've spent $3,000 in 4 years on marketing. And obviously that's quite minuscule when it comes to the world we live in and how much you need to push and we've just grown organically in what we've done. So I feel like that's a great result from a clients picking us up perspective. They're actually putting the word out there for us, which I think is a real testament to what we're up to. But the other thing that I kind of thought about when I saw this question was, if you go for an engagement first, Dale said it before, engagement and environment equal education. So if we can get those rapport building elements, relationship building elements right, not necessarily us as an organization, but anyone in their organization, you start to feed into the engagement piece, which creates the right environment for things like disclosure and transparency and trust. And that is the cultural underpinning, I think, for education and people taking that on board. So yeah, we've seen some great results in that area just by building rapport through whether it's lived experience, whether it's really relatable content, whether it's being, fresh, disruptive, young, whatever the, not me personally, but the people we may send on site, but all the different approaches that we have come together nicely. And there's a great saying, which is there's no competition in helping people. So if David's doing great work in his space and someone else within FMG or that relative organization is doing great work, you shouldn't be trying to get above each other for who's helping each other more or helping the people more. It's got to be complementary to each other. And I think that attitude has seen us build some great results with the people we're working with. And it's just ongoing in the way that we start getting more and more clients coming to us for I suppose, bespoke partnerships. And I hate the word clients. I think it just comes from the sales background that I had previously, but it really is about making sure that we have these long partnerships. And I suppose if one result shines through, retention was mentioned before, we've never lost an employee happiness program or a workplace happiness program client in the 4 years that we've had. We've always worked with them again. So that's a pretty nice thing to be able to talk about in a space that's, ultimately quite competitive. Everyone's competing for people's time and it's saturated. There's a lot of awareness pieces, but that action over awareness is starting to seep through, which is really, really nice.
Thank you so much, Robbie. I really appreciate that. And I wholeheartedly agree. If you have people wanting to continue on a relationship with you, you're obviously doing something right. You're obviously providing support that they want to see ongoing. So that's incredible. We're actually getting comments come through on the chat as well. Dale, people are singing your praises.
I wish everyone was like Dale.
Yeah. Well, they've said that they've worked with your company before. They worked with Pilbara Mines, Pilbara Minerals, and have said that you're really authentic and you put the effort in to come and thank everyone. And good on you, Dale. You're lovely. What a great group of humans we have here. Thanks so much for everyone commenting. This is fantastic. So I feel like, knowing us, we're going to run out of time. So I want to move through the next couple of questions quite quickly. So, Peta, do you have any results that you have seen with the work that you have done that's, somewhat measurable?
Yeah, sure. So I think, measurable is, there's obviously numbers of people referring to be part of the mental health first aid program, and you kind of can't force that. There's wait lists out the door. We can't get people through fast enough. And I think people who are kind of diehards who kind of come through or get nudged through the very first one and then go back on shift and say to the guys next to them that have been working underground for 30 years, you got to do that, remember Lenny, remember this person, remember that person, you got to go do that course. So I think the referral piece is important. I think another piece is that we've had lots of other parts of the supply chain, if you like, or the value chain coming forward since we started the mental health kind of process to say, hang on a minute, we need to review the recruitment, the onboarding stuff. How do we do this? How do we prepare people? Hang on a minute, we got to review the safety process. Around some of this stuff and around disclosures, we've got to review, as Dale said, leadership capability to have these conversations. If we're asking people to come forward, can they have the conversations? We've got to review the performance management process. We've got to review. So I think that's a real success as well. People coming forward to say, we don't want to butt down what's happening in mental health. We need to make sure the rest of the system resonates with that. One thing that I just want to add, and I know that we're nearly out of time, but for me in mining, one of the biggest issues around mental health, so there's engagement, there's flourishing, thriving culture, absolutely critical, prevention, proactive stuff. But I think we need to remember that the bottom of the pyramid in mining is safety, and mental health is the biggest issue impacting on safety. It's fatigue, it's concentration, it's attention, it's, you know, it's suicides, it's risk-taking behaviour, it's poor judgment, it's a lack of self-awareness of psychological insights. It's so I think, you know, there is certainly people sit up and take this, and to add to Dale's point around, you know, and I certainly have had a number of years of having to translate everything into kind of hard dollars around mental health. But I think the thing that's really important for me in terms of mental health kind of growing up as well is people being able to say, look, this is the most critical safety issue that our workforces face. You look at some of the you know, the deaths and, you know, suicide every 2 days. You know, if we had a death every 2 days in the industry from any other related industries, you know, activities. So I think, you know, in terms of measurable results, I think we'll start to see that at some point in safety as well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Peta. We've also got someone that let us know that you are actually sideways on your video.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I did shift. I shifted me.
Did you?
There we go. I was just trying to make myself interesting. Am I better now?
I kind of like that. You are the right way around now, but I kind of enjoyed like just gazing at you this way.
I was just listening.
Thank you so much, Peta. We appreciate you. So David, can we get a little bit of a summary from you in regards to any results that you've seen from services or strategies that you put in place with your chaplaincy and pastoral programs?
Yeah, it's like everybody said, it's hard to be tangible and measure it as such, but things we do see is there's a lot more openness generally across all the workforce. And I must admit, one of the joys is when we get, you know, if there is a toolbox or something and something's been spoken about, we now actually get people from the floor adding their bit as we go, which sort of 10 years ago we didn't have. And for me, that is a definite positive moving forward, where I think we've got a long way to go in removing the stigma as far as mental health goes across the resources industry. But I think we're starting. I think it is there, and it is starting to move. And one of the things we actively do is if somebody has a mental health concern or a challenge, we'll actively work with them to get them back to work when it's appropriate. The same as we would if we broke the leg or had any other physical sort of injury, and we frame it in that same basis. That message is now getting out. So yeah, fortunately we have, I'd say we have more people now actually coming forward and seeking help when it's a concern before it becomes an issue, which I see as evidence itself.
Yeah. Thank you so much, David. And I've even just heard people, so I've actually got a few of my clients work Fifo and work on the mines, and they have mentioned that there is previously there was a big fear around speaking up because they felt as though their supervisors and people that they were speaking up to would not think that they were competent in what they were doing anymore, or would not feel as though they were appropriate in their role and might move them somewhere else. So there was a big fear and a loss of the fear of loss of income, fear of loss of their positions and all of the hard work that they put into the roles that they're currently in. So that's incredible to hear that you have more and more people feeling comfortable speaking up, and you've got that transition back into doing the job that they were doing previously. So thank you so much. This is going really well. We're already getting some questions through on the chat. So I will encourage any attendees, if you do have questions, please pop them in the chat now. We are going to wrap up our questions, so we'll try to address as many of them as possible. So attendees, if you've got any, please pop them in and we'll go through them in a moment. I do want to, there's a few more questions that I wanted to ask, but I'm kind of prioritizing here, folks. So I think what I would love to know, so obviously COVID hugely impacted the mental health of so many of us. but very much inclusive of people on mine sites and their families. And I would love to hear from you. If you could summarize, I could hear you guys speak for hours, but if you could summarize it in a couple of sentences or a few sentences, if you could let me know what it is that you've seen as the biggest impact that COVID has had on the mental health in mining, and what it is that you've adapted to be able to deal with that. I would love to hear that. I know that's a really hard task saying that in a couple of sentences, but I believe in all of you. So I might throw it over to Dale. So what struggles have you seen in regards to all of the COVID things happening? How has that affected the mental health of your staff?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think, COVID, of course, massive shockwave for the world, all industries, mining included. And I think when that sort of trigger happened, we got really worried as a business about, of course, the business itself, but the health and well-being of our people, and the knowledge that COVID was absolutely destructive for many people's homes. Those who were in various industries were without jobs. Families didn't have, kids couldn't go to school. All of that. It was an incredibly uncertain time. And we knew that even if mining, albeit in a bit of a bubble and well looked after, we knew that the relationships, the extended relationships at home, whether that's partners or exes or uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, there would be a whole bunch of pain out there, which obviously, we're all connected, we're all family. So with that in mind, we just tripled the efforts as a team, and we have the benefit of being a smaller organisation, so that contact time was easier to facilitate. So we did a lot of video calls from executive level out to the teams on each shift by shift basis, just ensure that those safety nets were pushed out, and just ensure that the conversations were happening as much as possible. And in many ways, the whole event in some ways was actually a little bit of a blessing because of the response that it triggered with us. And I think my impression is that we became a much better organisation through that because of the engagement that it asked us to do. And I think it's put us in fantastic stead and changed the relationship with our staff in a really positive manner.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And very admirable, the video calling from an exec level down to your staff. That's fantastic. And we chatted about that when we caught up via Zoom, and I was so impressed, and it just shows a lot about the culture of the company. So thank you very much. I might flick it over to David. David, could you let us know what changed in the mental health support for your staff given the COVID situation, and what it was that was a big struggle for a lot of the staff members?
Well, I think one of the primary things we've experienced is the level of anxiety and collective anxiety around and the not knowing. Our Western Australian based workforce, they did it pretty tough like everybody else did, but we have a number of people from the eastern states who were severely affected. And so some of them weren't able to go home or chose not to go home for 8-9 months. So during that time, we virtually took over one of the hotels here so that they could have their normal R&R in Perth. However, it's still not going home. You're still not with your loved ones. And so we engaged, and our management engaged in activities with them as well, and tried to incorporate them into the business. Like Dale says, as one family, we're all in this together and help each other through it, and that has very positive aspects and once again, it's not so much measurable, but you feel it. You feel the vibe across the people. But there's a lot more togetherness in that respect. Tragically, we're still experiencing a lot of anxiety with our people, and within Fortescue, we have over 50 different nationalities working for us. And the rest of the world is still severely affected by the pandemic. And yeah, a lot of people are doing it really tough because they can't maintain contact with family. They haven't been able to see loved ones. Sadly, some of them have actually lost loved ones and still haven't been able to connect. Yes, so there's a lot of pain still. And I think we're in a transition period at the moment as we adapt to what the new norm is. I think we went through a period where we were expecting it to go back to what it was, or a lot of people were. And now we're in another transition period into, well, what is this going to look like? Which is still an unknown, and the unknown creates anxiety. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it. So what I might do, folks, is I might hop along to each of you and get you to answer my last question that I had, but I would love to get your answer in, I'm challenging all of you, in one word, just for fun. So the last question is, what does the future of mental health in mining look like to you? If you could pick a word moving forward, what would the future of mental health in mining look like? I'm going to throw around the order now because Dale and David just spoke. So Robbie, why don't you go first?
Exciting.
Oh, I love that. Do you know what? You're in the right role if you're like so excited about what you're doing. That's beautiful. I love that. What about you, Peter?
Oh, geez, I got 2 words.
Okay, fine. Okay, you can hyphenate.
Okay, just two. I'll hyphenate. Science, use science more and measure it. We've got to measure our mental health.
Okay, science measure. It's one word. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I love that. Okay. What about you, Dale? One word, future of mental health in mining.
Foundational.
Oh, yes. That is good.
Now I got word envy. I got word envy now, Dale.
This happens with these activities. What about you, David?
Healthy.
Healthy. That's perfect. I love that so much. So what I might do is I might quickly address a couple of the questions. So we have had some questions regarding mental health professionals available on site. So we have slightly addressed that. So for Dale and David, could you just reiterate what mental health professionals you do have on your mine site? So Dale, if you could reiterate that one for us.
So we haven't had any dedicated person to site, but through EAP reviews People Sense, and I'd actually encourage any groups to use that type of group who comes in, comes out, because I actually think that's quite good. And yeah, Fifo Focus, shout out to them on the mental health first aiders. By the way, they're the ones who gave the very nice compliment, so I feel it's the least I could do. Thank you for that. But those would be two key groups I'd make mention of.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then David as well. So what mental health, I mean, you said that you've got a rotation of chaplains on sites, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah.
So all the chaplains are trained in basic mental health awareness and intervention. But besides that, like Dale, we also have our EAP providers. We, in our residential communities in Headland and Carafa, we also have EAP on the ground. So they're accessible for those who are residential in the country as well. And then we bring other professionals on site to deliver training and awareness. And that's, like Robbie was saying, we find the external voice is really important, because even if it is a similar message, people hear it afresh if it's coming from a different source. And then lived experience. Last October, we had Lifeline go around all our sites and engage both in the workplace and within the villages with individuals. And that's a standard thing every, not with Lifeline, but with different bodies every October, throughout October, usually the first week into November, in order to get around all the business.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, David. So we do have a couple of extra questions on here. I do also want to address, and it was actually brought up in the comments, so I want to just make sure that we're addressing everyone. I have a rapport with each of you, and sometimes that rapport comes off as a little bit friendly and a little bit lighthearted. I do want to address that the topics that we are talking about this evening are very serious, and any laughter or smiling on my behalf is coming from the connection that I'm having with our speakers. It is not coming from a space of finding anything humorous about the discussions that we're having. So we just had a comment of someone expressing that, and I really do apologize if it is coming off in a way that is offensive at all, but I am coming from a space of connecting with these incredible speakers and hearing what it is that they are currently doing, and they are all phenomenal, and I just have a really fantastic rapport with them. So I just wanted to quickly address that, because I do think it's important that everyone is addressed in these comments. In addition to that, we do have someone that has asked if they're keen to know whether any of the organisations do any org design preventative work in the area of measuring and minimising psychosocial hazards. So have any of your organisations done work within that space?
Certainly Northern Star has done a fair bit. It was a big part of the entire life cycle, everything from looking statistically at where the challenges were, high risk points, but looking at role clarity and org design I think it's a critical part of that, and I think it's now well recognised that you can do all you like in culture and those sorts of things, but if you don't have, role clarity at the end of the day, or an environment that is structured appropriately, it won't flourish.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Is anyone else doing work within that space? I saw your head nodding a bit, Rob. Is that something that you guys have done?
Well, I mean, not us per se, but our partners and clients are doing more and more work, especially in that psychosocial space. And I know the work that Sandra's doing with her clients and partners is incredible. So shout out to Sandra as well, doubling down. But I feel like all the work that anyone is doing at the moment is helpful. And I just want to clarify my comment around exciting, by the way, because, exciting is a positive word, but I also feel like if we keep hitting the hurdle of not being able to have a positive sense within the mental health spectrum, then that is where stigma lies. No matter your experience, and I can't speak for anyone else's experience, but when it comes to what we see working, having that engagement, that enjoyment factor around the learning of what goes into well-being, not the enjoyment of what could happen down the other end of the spectrum. I think that's really important to stipulate, and to get people's attention, you have to use both ends of that spectrum. But yeah, I mean, seeing a lot of our clients work in the space of how can we job design better? How can we get those rosters better? How can we move towards making it more acceptable for our workers to be in the space they are in for that amount of time? And transition is probably the hardest part about FIFO work. So how can we get those transitional moments, or the R&R and going away from home so much better for not just the person, but if they're lucky enough to have family and friends around them as well, for those people that are peripheral to the job but really core to their well-being.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robbie, and thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate you. I do have one more of these questions that would be best targeted towards David, I feel. Someone has asked, are you doing any resilience building programs in place that incorporate the families? I do know that your chaplaincy program works with supporting families as well. Is a resilience training a part of that? Resilience support?
Resilience and buoyancy training we do have in place. One of the hardest things we actually have is actually getting families engaged and to come along. And one of the other things we've done, which has been very successful, I believe, is financial support and guidance as well.
Yeah.
We can't offer financial advice because we're not financial advisors, but we have some professionals who come in and run sessions for us in that area. And also with our superannuation providers and insurances, same thing. And they actually go out on site, but they also run things within Perth and around and do webinars and things for our people as well. But yeah, I would love to see get the families more engaged. And like Robbie was saying, we do a fair amount of work with transition to and from Fifo. So when people are leaving site and when they're coming back to site as well, which is really so important that both parties actually understand what the individual's actually going through at that stage.
Yeah. Thank you so much, David. And I want to wrap up like our group discussion just by saying that the purpose, and Anne will go more into this as well, but the purpose of this webinar was not necessarily to highlight all of the serious issues that people on mine sites are currently facing. We were coming more from a space of wanting to give people some information on what corporations and companies and organizations are currently doing that is working really well in order to empower other people to do the same. It was really coming from a space of wanting to shed light on the fantastic initiatives that are currently happening within the mining industry. If we take this back, 10 years, we were in a completely different space, and the future is going to look completely different to how it is now. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that each and every one of our fantastic guest speakers has very much put a lot of love and effort into supporting the mental health in the mining industry. And it's been fantastic hearing from all of you. So I might hand over to the lovely Anne, and she's going to finish off the webinar for us. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you, Darielle. And look, thank you to all of our speakers tonight. It's been really insightful for me. I have really valued it. It's been an amazing evening, and I've taken a few words down. What came through to me was the importance of inclusion, diversity, trust, and leadership at all levels within the organisation, and that sense of openness and growth. And one of the things that I think that is really important, we've been talking about people working in the mining industry, and that is executives right through to people working on the ground. And mental health affects all of us, and our mental well-being is such a critical thing and for our well-being. And so it's been really interesting to listen to our leaders tonight talk about the importance and what they're doing as well for themselves. And I think that is really important. The other thing, I'd like to see this conversation continue, because by having this conversation, we're actually looking at what is happening and what may be working well, but there'll be gaps. And it's important to understand what those gaps are and how we might start to address them. So if there's any further, this is being recorded tonight, so hopefully we can actually put it onto the Mental Health Foundation Australia website. But in addition to that, if there's any opportunities for further discussions, I think we should really support that. And this year in October, we'll be having another symposium with the mining industry on the 13th of October. So everybody is welcome to come along to that. And thank you to all of our listeners who have sent in questions, because that's helped to stimulate a further discussion. So I know it's over time, it's well and truly over time. So thank you so much. And thanks, Darielle, for all of the work you've put into this. And thank you to our speakers.
Oh, thank you, Anne. Thank you for being a part of this. So yeah, that is us wrapped up. What we will do is leave a little slide on the screen following all of us leaving, and it will just have the details of all of our speakers. So I think I've actually just included LinkedIn links, because I mean that's where we find the majority of information on people these days. So yeah, if you are interested in anyone that has spoken, if you would like to connect with them, hear more about what it is that they're doing, please hang on, and with a lovely screen will appear with some of their details. But again, thank you so much. It's, you know, dinner time here in WA, and I so appreciate all of you putting off your dinner for this webinar, and I hope that you enjoy it. But also thank you so much for all of the incredible work that you are all doing within this space, and I'm so looking forward to continuing on these conversations and seeing how your organizations and your projects grow, because this is, as Robbie said, a really exciting time for mental health in mining in regards to all of the progress that is happening. So thank you so much, and hopefully we will see you all in October at the symposium, if not before then. Head on over to the Mental Health Foundation Facebook page. We've got a WA specific Facebook page as well, where we will update all of our upcoming events. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Darielle.
See you. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.